What's up, ladies and gents? It's me, RP, and today I'm going to be talking about something that is probably quite close to our hearts in 2022, and that is the price of petrol. It's very expensive right now. It's hovering between $3.20 to $3.50 in Singapore for RON 95, which is the go-to petrol grade for literally any motorcycle. I'm not going to go into 98 because there's absolutely no motorcycle that needs 98 in Singapore unless you are into motorsports with a high compression engine on a sport bike. But otherwise, 95 is, really expensive right now in Singapore. But there are, some ways you can actually save on the cost of petrol without actually moving into electric vehicles right now. The whole point of saving money is not to just sell your bike for a more efficient model, even if it's a low consumption small underbone or an EV, but to keep your current bike running as long as possible, mechanically viable as long as possible, and just adjusting some of your day-to-day practices with regards to fuel consumption. Now, before anything, before even getting on a bike, a lot of the things that affect fuel consumption is on the bike itself. Now, a lot of things that affects fuel consumption primarily has to do with first of all, weight and aerodynamics, as well as drag. Now, weight is probably the easiest thing to deal with when riding a motorcycle. If you're fat, well, I mean, fat people can't really just lose weight at a glance, especially if you have health issues like I think thyroid problems or something like that. But you can cut weight in other ways. The first of all is unless you have a need to carry luggage with you, take it away. Take all your luggages. Don't have a top box even if it's empty. Don't have side boxes even if it's empty. You may consider cutting weight in some of your stock parts, like changing them over to carbon fiber, but in my opinion, those things, the weight decrease is incredibly marginal. Don't bother doing that. Keep your bike as stock as possible. Most of the weight that affects fuel consumption on a motorcycle tends to come from luggage and the rider's weight. If you can lose weight, that's great. If not, the first step is ditch all your cargo if you don't need it, and as and when you need it, instead of having a heavy hard top case, carry a removable soft luggage that you can strap to the back of your bike, and then remove it as and when it no longer needs to be on the bike itself. That's the number one tip that I can give you. The second tip is to deal with aerodynamics. If you can find a way to put some fairings or windshield on your motorcycle, that actually helps quite a bit. If you don't have a fat motorcycle, at least a windshield would be great. If you have a fat motorcycle, great. The aerodynamics part of it is already baked into your motorcycle itself. The second part, along with the luggage, is that unless you really need them, the luggage actually causes a lot of aerodynamic drag, especially if it is side luggages. Just get rid of those. Those are the worst culprits of aerodynamic drag on a motorcycle. The third one would be, if and when possible, wear a smooth domed helmet, like my Icon Airframe Pro, whatever. It does help a bit, and if you were to tuck behind your windscreen, it helps in reducing the drag that happens across your body and over your head. That is the best case scenario. The third is, of course, friction. Friction causes overall drag on your bike that reduces the fuel consumption of your motorcycle. Now, this Versys-X 300 on mine is a poor representation of the kind of tires you want to have on your motorcycle to save on petrol. The best kind of motorcycle to save on petrol is generally something with low resistance, low rolling resistance, which is anything that is not off-road biased. So this Mitas E07, they are 50/50 on-road off-road dual sport tires that I have on my Versys-X 300, and I have a very good reason because I take this bike on and off-road quite a lot. So they are very bad choices to have when you're trying to save on gas. If you want to save on gas, you should be looking at something like the Michelin Road 5 tires that are profiled for street riding with a rounder profile and with as little tread block and a lower aspect ratio. This helps to reduce the rolling resistance on a bike in general. Okay, but if you can't afford to buy a new set of tires, let's say you buy a bike and it already comes with something like this, changing the tire straight away is kind of not worth it when it comes to saving money, because if you look at the date code and you know the history of the tires and you think it can last quite a bit more, maybe use the tires and then change to something more road biased, because wasting that lifespan of the tire is going to kill your pocketbook when in general most motorcycle tires cost about almost $200 a pop, either the front or the rear. So it's a bad idea to change before you need to. Keep the tires as long as possible unless there is a real fault with the safety behind the tire itself. But if you have one of these tires when you buy a new bike, you can always increase the tire pressure. Now, most motorcycles have a recommended tire pressure specification that is listed somewhere on the bike, but for I would say in road bikes, they would be somewhere on swing arm on the other side if you can find it. Some bikes don't have them anymore, especially if it's old. The sticker's been torn away, but you can follow the tire pressure guide there. But for the most part, if you can't really figure it out, a good guideline is if your bike is anywhere between 180 to 200 kilograms or more, you should be looking at least 36 psi front and back. If you're riding something like a 1200 GS, you should really be putting your tire pressures at 40 to 42 psi. Lighter bikes can get away with about 32, but in general, this is a rough guideline. 40 psi front and back is a good idea for most heavy class 2 bikes. 32 to 36 is a great idea for lighter bikes under 400 cc's that weigh less than 180 kilos. And for the most part, this is going to be the optimal tire pressure for maintaining some form of flexibility. Of course, the safety that goes hand in hand with it, as well as reducing the drag, because when your tires have low pressure, they start flexing, and this contributes to rolling resistance where with the road surface itself. Of course, now we can actually go into the whole idea of adjusting your riding habits in order to improve the efficiency of your fuel consumption. Now, one thing that a lot of riders like to do is to get all herky-jerky with their throttle. The best thing you can do to reduce fuel consumption in general is to be very, very gentle with the throttle. Don't shut it off and don't open it up too hard. Be very, very gradual with the throttle head. A lot of the consumption of fuel comes from overcoming inertia from stops. If you want to save on petrol, you want to make that process gradual, because the faster you accelerate, the more exponential the increase in fuel you are using to achieve that same effect. The next thing you can do, of course, is to brake as little as possible. Use the engine braking. When you are on the road, maintaining a consistent speed is quite important. When you brake, you are shaving off, the energy that is propelling forward into waste heat, and that is not what you want to do. You don't want heat, you want movement on your motorcycle. Unnecessary braking is a waste of petrol. What you want to do is anticipate the flow of traffic and modulate your speed accordingly. Follow the speed of traffic as much as possible to save on gas. Don't try and accelerate too hard and then brake all of a sudden when when you encounter slow traffic, because then all the energy expended on accelerating up is wasted. Try and look ahead and see what speed traffic in general is moving at and follow that. The next thing you want to do is, of course, to shift early. Now, there is a certain satisfaction to shifting late, pushing the RPMs as high as possible before you change gears up, but it is always a good idea to maintain low RPMs on your motorcycle, which means if you are accelerating, shifting up early, and when you are decelerating, shifting down as late as possible, as long as you are able to keep the engine chugging above the bike's idle rate. The last thing is I would say is I think I should have talked about this a lot earlier when I was off the bike and I was explaining things with regards to the things you can do before you get on the bike to save on gas, and that is don't buy into the whole V-Power or RON 98 is more efficient in fuel consumption for your bike. It's bullshit. A motorcycle is tuned to be of a certain efficiency regardless of the gas you put it in. If you are on a bike that's tuned to combust RON 95 fuel, RON 98 or V-Power is not going to give you any increased efficiency. The reason 98 and V-Power exists is to prevent knocking on high compression ratio engines that exist on performance vehicles. Vehicles like the Lamborghini Huracan, Lamborghini Gallardo, sport cars like this, or if you're riding a very modern CBR 1000RR. But even then, if you are riding on a CBR 1000R or RR or a R1, where such a fuel grade actually gives significant performance boost, a lot of these modern bikes have electronics that can compensate for you using a lower grade petrol, RON 95 to be exact. RON 95 on certain high compression engines is a thing of the past. Is a problem only in the past, where there wasn't the electronics to control the ignition timing, and using this kind of a lower grade, more easily combustible fuel grades would cause engine knocking that would damage your engine in the long run, but it's no longer an issue. So whenever possible, you should be using RON 95 and save yourself some money. Almost nobody in this country needs RON 98. I hope these tips are helpful to any of you out there who are fresh out of riding school and just hit with the sudden increase in fuel prices the moment you got your license and your very first motorcycle. I hope you liked it. Leave me a like if you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time. Peace out and bye bye.